All right, Monday morning, July 9th, 2025. Well, summer's here, lots of graduation going on, and welcome to my channel. This is Mike Patel at Home Savvy Central, your channel for home sellers. Any questions regarding homeowners, tips, trends, and a shifting market. Oh, did I say shifting market? Yes, that's our topic today. Excuse me. So the topic today is there are 34 to 35% more sellers than buyers. So does that signal a housing bubble deflation? And the reason this topic is important is since the last 4 or 5 years, 2021, 22, 23, 24, one of the most common questions that I get, Daniel, our guest gets, lots of agents were getting is, hey, when are the prices dropping? Where is the housing bubble? When is the housing crash? Well, this could be the turn. The Titanic may be turning. The Titanic may be turning. So let's talk about that today. I'm glad you're here today live. If you're not live and if you talk looking at our recording, we value your viewership. A lot of my viewers watch more of my recordings than live, but hey, that's fine. So if you have any comments, any questions, just put them down here. So let's get started. I want to introduce my guest so we can start this conversation. My guest is none other than Daniel Hope. Daniel Hope. He's in my office, First Team Real Estate in Anaheim Hills. He's been a guest here before. So welcome, Daniel. Take a few seconds, introduce yourself, tell us what you do, etc., and we'll jump right into the shift.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me back here, Mike. So Daniel Hopp is my name. We both work at First Team Real Estate, and I've been in the real estate industry now for going on 10 years. Enjoying it, learning the balances of being a new father and also working in this wild business and this even more wild market that we're going to dig into right now. So I'm excited to dig in with you.
Excited. Well, congratulations. I know your son's turning about a year now or so.
No, he just turned 2 and we got another one on the way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Time flies. I remember when you came in, you were preparing for the pregnancy and the delivery, and now it's 2 years. Time flies.
Yeah. Now we need another bedroom.
Yeah. Well, you're a move-up buyer, right? You're a seller and a move-up buyer.
I'm a move-up buyer, but you know what? Couldn't be a better move-up buyer in this market than the one that we're in right now, when we're starting to see inventory start to increase.
Right. So let's do this since we were talking about a move-up buyer. Pretend you're a buyer, not an agent. And if you were to sell now, you have a 2-bedroom townhouse. I know you're very close to the office. You got married, now you got a baby, and let's pretend you're a typical buyer, typical seller. You have a 3% interest rate. You bought 2021, 2022. What are some of the things that will hold you back regarding the market, regarding your interest rate and the price? Or what are some of the things that will make you move ahead, thinking like a buyer or a typical seller, not as an agent?
Well, yeah, I don't know if you're just like super intimately aware of my current situation, but you almost described it to a T. So that's kind of funny.
Okay.
We do have a 3.25% interest rate. We do have a 2-bedroom, and we are a move-up buyer. We need more space. It's really funny.
Yeah.
My wife and I today, I was with her at a doctor's appointment. So we had a little bit today to talk about some future plans. My mother-in-law was watching our son. So we really got some uninterrupted time. And it's a struggle right now because while the prices are high, the values are very high still. It's a weird shift that we're seeing right now. So as a buyer, to think about letting go of my really low payment, I pay under $3,000 a month for our place, and picking up what's going to be more than double for the type of home in the area that we're looking, really hurts. It's difficult to think about that. We're coming from a $500,000 price point and looking at $1 million price point. So we'd be lucky to even get 6, a round number, as a mortgage. So if your question is, how would we go about doing it? We're weighing out those options right now.
Yeah. Going from 500 to $1 million, and for $1 million, you're not going to get a whole lot, right? You're going to get something older, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 1975, near Anaheim Hills, pretty much your bread and butter beginner home. So now you're going to double your payment because your price is going from 500 to $1 million. Your interest rate is going to go from, let's say, 3% to, let's say, 7%. Big jump.
Huge
Property
jump.
tax is going to go up. Your insurance is going to go up. You better be making lots and lots of money compared to 2 years ago to able to afford, in the sense that you want to be 30 to 35% DTI, debt to income ratio. Otherwise, you're stretching. A lot of Americans today, especially when it comes to the FHA buyers, the government loan buyers, the VA buyers, they're stretching. They're putting 40 to 45% of their paycheck. That means they put 45 cents from their paycheck to house payments, principal, insurance, tax, utilities, HOA. That's ridiculous. They have no money for food. They got to eat baked beans, like Dave Ramsey says. You got to eat beans and beans, and that's
Ramen.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah,
would
it's
you
so
be in
true.
that situation, or would you not be? Because one of the things to your advantage is you have built-in equity, so you can pull that equity and pop that into the next house, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is one thing that my wife and I are leaning more into. We really like the prospect of keeping our home because we have such a low interest rate, keeping it as a rental, and maybe pulling some equity out to go and buy. But now with what's happening with the insurance companies, what's happening with the homeowners associations, we're really starting to think that we would rather reinvest all the equity that we have into another property, or at least part of it. We can come out of pocket for some down payment, but really it might not be a bad idea to do that while the
Right.
home that we're looking at is older. We're looking at like a 1960s
Mm-hmm.
single story in Yorba Linda on like a 10,000 square foot lot, which it's hard to call that a starter home even, but
Right.
it is. I mean,
Yeah.
really, condos are quite expensive to own these days.
Right. So one
And
thing to your advantage would be, since you're a buyer and you're talking as a typical buyer, one thing to your advantage may be that we are hearing, excuse me, and it's a fact, and we're talking in general, USA wide, nationwide, we're seeing an increase in inventory. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, so let me read this article. This is from Redfin. Let me read it straight from the horse's mouth. This is from Redfin, came out on May 29th, which is last week. It says here that 500,000 more sellers than buyers, the most on record, and we're talking 10, 15-year record, right? That will likely cause home prices to fall. Continuing on the report, and then we'll discuss this, Daniel. There
Mhm.
are 34% more sellers in the market than buyers. And I'm not sure if it should be on the market rather than in the market, but let's not talk about grammar. At no other point in records dating back to 2013 have sellers outnumbered buyers this much. In other words, it's a buyer's market. The next paragraph is Redfin expects home prices to drop 1% by the end of the year as a result. Wow, 1%, give me a break. Prospective buyers may see their purchasing power increase, and prospective sellers should consider selling sooner than later. So let's talk about that. What does that grab you from this report as a buyer, not as an agent or as a typical seller?
And what was the question? What is that?
Well, I mean, there's more inventory. There's going to be a price drop. Should you be jumping and say, hey, yeah, I can buy now, I don't have to pay the high price? Is that your attitude, or does it mean anything?
You
What
know
the heck?
what? For me personally, and maybe I'm biased because I'm in the industry, no. I'm more motivated by the idea of the cost of housing being cheaper, not by the prices or the values themselves. But I would rather, as I'm accustomed to having a low interest rate, I would rather get into the market, or at least, lateral within the market, meaning sell my home and go buy another one, and be in a position to refinance, rather than what could potentially happen if
Mhm.
interest rates drop, and we see a frenzy of activity. While there are less buyers than there are sellers right now, there still are buyers, and
Right,
there are many waiting on the fence currently. And in
right,
my opinion, I don't want to be competing against the rest of them. I would
right.
rather find the home that my wife and I want. If we can make the payment, if we can stomach that, and we got to eat ramen for a little bit, or
Yeah.
beans for a little bit,
Right,
I would rather do that
right,
than being the. It's hard to imagine prices going up any higher, but
right.
it seems like that could potentially happen
Mhm.
if rates do drop.
Right. And we're in Orange County, so Danny, our prices haven't really dropped, and it actually is increasing more than 1%. Yes,
Mhm.
there are less multiple offers. There's less people coming in the open houses. There's less offers than before. We just opened an escrow in Corona, 10 miles from here. They were asking for 1.65. This house is agent owner occupied,
Mm.
right? They were asking for 1.7 originally. She dropped the price. Of course, she priced it way overpriced. She's an agent, and we got it in close to under 1.5.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
It does need
give him
some
a big
work.
haircut.
Yeah, it does need some work. It's almost 3,800 square feet home with a nice view, newer home, gated community. But she was way overpriced. She thought she'll get 1.7, 1.7. She did not. Then she dropped it to 1.65. Been on the market, nothing happened. It needs over 100,000 worth of work. So we got it less than 1.5. So even if my buyers put in 100,000, you're over 1.5, but 100,000 lower than the asking price. So
That's
let me read
spectacular.
further on this report, and then we can discuss more on that. And of
Mhm.
course, when we talk about this, some people who are in Florida or in Texas or other states, home prices have really dropped over there. Inventory has skyrocketed over there. Some areas, and we'll talk about what areas are doing well in the sense they're going up and what areas not doing well. But let's read this report further to get a more understanding here. And again, this Redfin report says that 31 of the top 50 metro are buyers markets, which means there's a lot of inventory. The strongest buyers market is Miami, where sellers outnumber buyers roughly 3-1. The strongest sellers market is Newark, and the most balanced market is St. Louis. The condo market heavily favors buyers. There are 83% more condo sellers than buyers. By comparison, there are 28% more sellers than buyers in the single family home market. Anything grabs you there, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, even here, you described Orange County for a second. That we're in a little bit different market here in Southern California. Even in our market, we've been accustomed to, like in Yorba Linda, Anaheim Hills, like 50 to 80 homes on the market through the pandemic, and now we're at like 134 in Yorba Linda today, for example, to North Orange County. There's definitely more options out there, and it seems that buyers are being pickier. And homes are sitting longer. So, I mean, this seems to align. I know it's talking more nationally, but it seems to align the narrative with where we're at home too.
Yep.
And then not to mention, places like Florida, for example, where they're seeing some big changes. There's a lot more at play there as well, with like you brought up briefly earlier with the insurance. There's some things that are really making it difficult to be a buyer there.
Right. Yeah, it's tough over there because of the insurance and the HOAs and the disasters. And Texas, same thing. I hear that Texas have a lot of overbuilding. A lot of the home builders have a lot of supply, so they want to get rid of it. They're giving low interest rate, 2% interest rate. They're giving, builder credits like, upgrades to expensive carpets or upgrades to kitchens, etc. Let's look further so we understand what's going on. Again, from the same report. I'll read. I want to read the second and third paragraph, but the title here is "It's expensive to buy a home. High home prices and mortgage rates are scaring buyers off. The median home sales price rose 1.6% year over year to 431 in April. That's the slowest growth in nearly 2 years." Now I'm going to jump to the second one: economic uncertainty. My opinion is this is what's scaring more of the buyers, at least the buyers I'm working with and the agents I'm working with, than the price and interest rates. I'm selling a home right now, a jumbo loan, 1.4 price range, and they're getting 7.3%, and they don't even worry about that interest rate. They want to buy, right? But this really, my opinion is this is what's hurting a lot of people. Economic uncertainty. Of course, this is my personal opinion based on reading a lot of blogs, talking to YouTube experts, talking to other brokers. Tariff talks, layoffs, and federal policy changes are among the other factors dampening homebuyer demand. A recent Redfin survey found that nearly 1 in 4 Americans is scrapping plans to make a major purchase due to tariffs. I want to go one step further, Danny, and I shouldn't even talk about this, but I just heard on the news, and I was out of town last week. I was really busy. I'm turning off the TV. I heard about the LA riots yesterday, and I'm sure that's going to have a big impact on the housing market because there's a lot of big community that is ethnic in the LA County. And today there's raise in Orange County. Our office, you were in the office for a little bit. I'm not sure if you were in our office today, but I was in the office till 2 today. There was no agents in there. Right? So there's something happening with all this politics, tariffs, uncertainty. higher interest rate, stock market crashing and going up and down. So there's a lot of factors happening right now why there is more inventory. It's not just the price and interest rate. I just sold 2 homes, investment 1.2 and 1.1. They both paid 7.2, 7.2, and the interest rate was not even a factor. So I personally think that this, what I read, tariffs, politics, layoff, federal policies, raids, blah, 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 is a big factor right now. People have lost confidence, and they're just going to wait. And that's part of the reason. And that's my personal opinion. I don't know how you feel about that, Danny.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I do recall seeing a statistic, which unfortunately I can't cite. It was an online statistic I saw not long ago. Actually, it was before the election, and it was about what the real estate market does before the election and after the election, how long after the election. And it seems like there is this typical drop in demand as a new administration comes in. This is not a left or a right thing. It's the way that this article had described it. And this was just one article I saw. Again, I wish I could cite it for you today. But if that is consistent, I mean, it feels certainly like what we're dealing with today. There's certainly been a loss of confidence. And then, of course, too, you have all these new policies, which from the last administration to today, I think most people would agree there are some large differences. So it makes sense that people are losing confidence. This is a whole different environment that we're dealing with right now. And people are on edge too. Obviously, what's happening in LA is really, really unfortunate. It's sad to see. I could see coming out of the fires that we had earlier this year with these riots that are happening right now. I could see this start to encourage people to leave LA County more to seek safer areas. But unfortunately, some of those safer areas come with a higher price tag in an already high market. So it's a really tough time for buyers right now.
Yeah. Here's another thing. And I'm sure, Danny, when you buy, you'll have that concern. You are paying high interest rate. You're paying higher price. Now you're paying higher property taxes. But guess what else you're paying sky high? If you're lucky to get it. And what's that?
Insurance.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, insurance, I'm in State Farm, and I know that as of July, they've been approved to increase our premiums overall 22%. I just saw a report yesterday that Allstate, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I'm not guessing, but I'm recalling, Allstate has just been approved by the California commissioner, because everything has to be approved by the insurance commissioner. They've been approved or given the green light to go ahead and increase 34% premium as of December.
I saw that.
But they've already gone up so high. I mean, my auto earthquake insurance has already gone up. Now it's going to go up 22%. When it comes to new buyers, they're going to pay a premium. So you're paying high interest rate, you're paying a high price, right? Now you're paying high insurance, high HOA. So coming back to the consumer confidentiality, right? The economy drives on consumer confidence, and it's low, my personal opinion. And that's what's slowing it down. Of course, there are other factors, but that's another big factor that people don't consider. And for those of you that are watching live or even a recording, please make a comment. Let us know where you are, what's happening in your market, or where do you feel the market is going? Are you going to see a rapid price drop in your area? Are you seeing an increase in inventory? Are you seeing multiple offers? Or if you're in Florida, for example, there's some cities, for example, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada are showing rapid shifts downwards. So if you're in those areas, let us know what city you are and how it's affected. So anyway, let's move on, Danny.
Hey, Mike, can I give you 2 quick anecdotes too?
Sure.
One of them is kind of silly, but a week ago today, I was golfing I was at a golf tournament, and one of the guys in my foursome, he's a State Farm insurance agent. And we started talking about insurance, and he just kind of candidly said, dude, we're screwed. State Farm cannot help you today. We're so screwed.
Really? Yeah.
And that one made me laugh. But another one that was really interesting to me, I've been seeing this more recently, and tell me if you've also seen this, Mike. with a buyer, they get estimates, from their lender of how much they should plan to pay for insurance when they're trying to formulate the cost for a buyer of what it's going to cost them to own a home. It seems like the estimates that the lenders keep giving are low simply because insurance is just getting higher and higher. It's getting more and more expensive. And so now they're having to adjust upward what they're estimating for their prospective loan their prospective buyer,
Right,
borrower.
right.
That's what I meant to say.
Right. So you mean in the GFE, which is the good faith estimate, they have to give you the tax and the property tax insurance. So yes, that's very true, because the GFA is, it's an estimate done by a calculator, default calculator, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't know that when you actually go get an insurance, like the house we sold in Corona could be near the fire area.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if it shows a 2,000 insurance, when you actually get it, it could be 3,000. So all of a sudden your payment went up $115 a month, right? It's a shock to the buyer because he's already stretching to pay 5,000 a month payment. Now you go into, it's going to be 5,200, and
It's a huge shock. Yeah.
And they're going to get mad at you and me. It's not the insurance, but they're going to get mad at us, right? Oh, you're freaking realtors, So we're going to hear it.
Oh, yeah. And then, even in some cases too, they're not finding out until they get into escrow that if it's a condo, for example, many of these condos up against the foothills and whatnot that are in those high fire zones, as the insurance companies are expanding their maps, which I think comes out in July, if I'm not mistaken, those new fire maps.
Okay.
Some condo communities are going to now be wrapped up in it that were once financeable and now may become, like some of the other ones, non-warrantable, where now they can't even get financing on it.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Yeah. So let's switch some gears here. I'm going to take this out and we'll put another website here. I just want to talk very briefly about the pricing trends and forecasts, and we can talk about this. And this is from reports from Redfin and Zillow. I may not show it on the screen, but Redfin and Zillow predict home values drop anywhere from 1 to 2% by the year end. And of course, Redfin said the same thing. And of course, just to let you know again, this is a national average.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think in Orange County prices are going to go dropping. I think it'll go up 1 or 2%, not go down. Miami could go down 5 or 10%. Some parts of Arizona could go down 10%. Some parts of Southern California, like Palm Springs, may go down 5%. But this is an average. So if you're in Montana or Iowa or Seattle, it could be different. But the numbers we're giving you and we're discussing are general averages. So that's why I said, please make comments on what's happening in your neighborhood, because real estate is hyper local, and what happens here in California could happen 6 months later in Texas and 10 months later in Montana. So there's a drag time and there's a lag time,
Sure.
So Miami is identified as the strongest buyer's market. In fact, the whole of Florida is. I did a video last year, excuse me, where the net migration, not net migration, but for the first time in 10 years, a lot of less people moved in. The migration was still high. It was positive, but the number of people coming into Florida dropped. At the same time, the number of people leaving Florida increased. See what I'm saying? So more people were leaving Florida and less people were coming in, but on average, the net migration was still positive, but it was a lower number.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because all these hurricanes has done two things. Fixing the homes, the roofs, and everything has become very, very expensive. There's a shortage of labor, again, because of mass deportation. Florida was the number one state to be affected. A lot of the construction companies, I don't mean to get political, but white-owned construction companies are crying because there's no labor, and all the labor force was non-white. And I'm not trying to be political. These are facts. And the company shut down. There are housing tracts not doing anything. Framework is up there because there's no workers. Right? And I'm not getting political. I'm giving you facts. The other thing that happened is it's too expensive to fix things. A lot of the homeowners whose homes got damaged in the hurricanes and the winds and the water don't have the money. A lot of them are seniors on fixed income. They've been in the house for 20, 25 years. They don't have 50 grand to dish out to fix something. At the same time, the insurance went up, the HOA went up, home prices went down. So a lot of the seniors are moving out. So we are seeing a direct impact. In fact, there's another report where a lot of the developers, a lot of the sharks are buying so many homes in Florida at discount rates. Because, if I'm a contractor, I have my own labor, the roof that cost you 50 grand is going to cost them 15 grand. So a lot of the contractors in Florida are going to make a killing in a couple of years because they're
Oh,
getting
sure.
yeah. So there's a big transition going on. And of course, a lot of things I'm saying is based on what I hear, what I talk about, being on the channel, being on live streams and things like that. So you want to add something to that, Danny?
Another thing that you mentioned that stood out to me was just about, our market, hyper local here versus the national is totally different. And that's why it's important that, folks who are paying attention to the real estate market, they really pay attention to their market specifically, because the story that's being told over there in Florida is so different than here. While we do see an increase in inventory, while we do see less demand, there is still something interesting happening here. So I'll share a statistic with you from Stephen Thomas. 22% of all closed sales in April decreased the list price. That was in April. 22% did. It's a pretty big number, a fifth of all sales.
Yeah.
Here's a better one for you. 37% of all sales in April closed above the original list price. So it really depends on what you're reading, right?
Exactly.
List price increase, closed above list price. So the difference to what I just said was one of them, the list price remained the same, but or decreased, right? They just decreased their list price and then sold. The other one, the list price, they don't mention anything about it, but 37% sold over what that list price was.
Yeah.
I think that's really important for somebody who's shopping here to not be paying attention to, oh my gosh, we're in a buyer's market and we can ask for a discount. Well, guess what? If you found the home that you loved here in Orange County and you listened to what the national news told you, you might have just lost the home that you loved. Which is unfortunate. So having good representation here that can guide them and tell them, look, what's happening in Florida is really, really serious, and what's happening here is a little bit different story. So
exactly.
I love hearing the differences though, because it can be so starkly different.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. So let's look further into it. Here's another report. This report came out June 3rd, 2025. So it's a very recent report. It talks about home price insights, June 2025 overview. The spring home buying season is fading as external pressures continue to weigh on price growth across the nation. Year over year, and I'm curious to find out what they mean by external pressure. So let's dig into that. Year over year, price growth slowed to 2% in April 2025, with single-family detached homes still growing at 2.46 annual rate, while single-family attached homes like condos and other things posted a 0.08 decline, the first annual decline since 2012. It's a small number, but it's significant. Wyoming entered the top 5 states with the highest year-over-year home price growth. Markets with continued largest home price gains this spring remain in Northeast and Midwest, particularly more affordable areas surrounding large, expensive metros. And lastly, Florida, Texas, Hawaii, and Washington, D.C. reported negative home price growth. They didn't put Arizona in there, but they're looking at the top one. So here's what it shows: national home price growth. This is the current, year over year, it's 2% growth. Month over month, it's 0.6. And the forecast for 2025 is that there'll be a growth of 4.3% forecast, but I don't think it's going to get there. Nationally, I don't think it'll get there. Maybe in Orange County, it will, So any comments on that, Danny, before I move on to that?
I'm super curious to hear your opinion. Why do you think it will not get there? To the 4.3%.
Nationwide, it's not going to get that 4.3%. And that's based on the trend of what we are talking today. What are we talking about today? We're talking about, what was our title? Our title is 35% more sellers than buyers. So isn't real estate like anything else? The price of anything is based on supply and demand. What has gone up significantly this year? Inventory.
Inventory, yeah.
Right? When inventory goes up, you don't get multiple offers. If I write an offer, if I have a buyer, Danny, you're my buyer, you're going to buy $1 million home. You write an offer, it's $1 million, you offer $950, and the sellers goes, nope, I want full price. I'm going to show you another one down the street because there's 2 more homes for sale that were not there last year. Say, hey, Danny, let's go over there and offer 950 and we get it there. So that's why I'm saying that if the inventory increases, it cannot sustain a price increase nationwide. I'm talking about. That's to answer your question.
Yeah, nationwide, right? No, that makes perfect sense. I just wanted to hear from you what your thought was there, and then that really is very clear. I was going to share another anecdote with you, which was open house I held yesterday in Upland. It was extremely slow the whole weekend, mind you. This was the very first weekend. It's a good price point, under 600,000 for a 3-bedroom condo. I had 7 people come in the entire weekend. 2 were agents, 2 were neighbors, and the other were interested buyers. But what's interesting is hearing some of these buyers say, yeah, today we're seeing your listing is one of 12 that we're seeing today.
Oh my gosh.
There's options. There's options out there. We're not the only ones.
Yeah.
Previously, it's like, yeah, I got a listing. Oh my gosh, a listing exists. Finally, we have a home to potentially buy. Now it's like, yeah, which one?
Yeah, 12 homes. They saw 12 homes. I mean, I remember a time where, hey, Danny, there's a house coming. Let's go there. Be prepared to write an offer on the car.
Yeah,
right. And now they're saying, hey, you know what? It's Saturday today. We'll come back tomorrow. We're going to see 5 open houses today, 5 tomorrow, and they may add 2 more. So that's why I'm saying I don't expect a 4% increase in price if inventory keeps rising nationwide. And like I said, Montana, a lot of the Northeast states. And again, everything I'm saying is my personal opinion based on facts and things I've read. The prices are going up over there because Arizona is maxed out on price. Texas is maxed out on price. Iowa is maxed out on price. So where are people moving? They're moving up where it's cheaper. My brother moved to Wisconsin. He bought a $400,000 brand new house, 3,000 square feet, huge lot. That same house in California would be 1.5. He got it for $400,000,
And that is the big question, though, is how many people can't afford to make that kind of a move, too, right?
Right.
Some of them can't afford to not make it either. Some of them need to get out of their home.
Right.
There are people that made some, they made some decisions that could have been very, very expensive decisions. They overpaid for homes, a couple of years ago, and now they're thinking, I got to get out before this gets really ugly. Right. There's a lot of that fear out there right now.
Yeah. I'm going to read something else from this report is out on, let me see how close, the same report, June 3rd, 2025. I'm not going to talk about affordability because it kind of skewed right now. Let's talk about the insights from the chief economist, Selma Hepp. I just want to see what she says. April posted the lowest home price growth in more than a decade. 2 months ago, prices was rising at a nearly 3% clip. And I don't know what she means by clip, but let's leave it at that. But by April 2025, prices slowed to only 2%, which is the slowest growth since spring of 2012. Widespread concerns about personal finances, job prospects, and potential tariff impacts continue to weigh on home prices.
Go to a barbecue right now, go sit in the backyard. The conversation of tariffs comes up. I'm speaking from personal experience. Depending on what business you're in, many of them are affected, and many of them are thinking, oh my gosh, these tariffs are going up, which means I got to increase my prices, which means that certain customers may not be able to afford to continue going there or shopping there. It's definitely getting difficult for a lot of people. The pocketbook is getting lighter and lighter as things are getting more and more expensive.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about Orange County and LA County. Of course, I'm from here. There's raids going on right now. Legal, illegal, let's not go there. A lot of the labor force is going to be gone. If I'm a builder, I'm building 100 homes, right, in Orange County. I bet you some of my labor force is gone, right? What's going to happen to that house? Price is going to go up because why? The labor cost went up. It took me as a builder instead of a year. Now it's going to take me 14 months to build it because now I got to stop the work, find a labor, right? Do this. My insurance has gone up. My 2x4s has gone up. Labor's gone up. My insurance goes up. I have to keep a security guard now because they steal copper wires, right? They still steal copper wires. And that security guard is cost me more. So prices are only going to go up when things like this happen. So it's the outside factors more than, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think the interest is a very big factor. Yes, it is a big factor, but we're at a point where it's been 3 or 4 years since we saw the 3%. The new buyer pool that's coming in, they accept the 7%. Let's go back in 1988, 1986. The rates were 12%, 14%, 15%. Those buyers thought it was normal to pay 12, 13%.
Oh, yeah.
The buyers in 23, 24, 25 got a shock when it went from 3% to 7%, and there was a slowdown. But now the new buyers that are coming in, all the buyers that I've talked to, and of course they talk to my lender, not me, they don't tell me, hey, Mike, the rates were 3%, now it's 7%. Nobody says that. They already know it's 6.9%, 6.8%. So I don't think the serious buyers who are going to buy, they know it's 7% range. That's not a factor. But the factor that's really dampening the real estate market are tariffs, politics, price increases, labor increases, insurance cost, HOA cost. It's those things. It's the consumer confidentiality is low. People are scared. Unemployment is coming. According to reports, Microsoft is going to lay off 3% of their workforce worldwide. Google, Walmart, Apple, all of those guys are laying off. These are big companies, followed by a lot of other companies. So if I'm looking for a house at $1 million in Orange County, am I going to have my job next 6 years, next 6 months? Of course, I'm a realtor, but if I had another job, that's a big concern to me.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people.
So there's a lot of factors that's going to increase the inventory, slow down the buyers, and it's much more than affordability and the interest rate. That's what I'm trying to say.
Which, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this is all going to shake up, because there is so much happening right now. Between the tariffs, between the political stuff, which I know we don't have to get into, it's really going to be interesting. But right now there is a lack of confidence, and there's no doubt about that.
I'm going to read the second paragraph and see what it says, and then go from there. Housing market headwinds continue to challenge home buying demand, but improved for sale supply is providing buyers with more options and helping keep softer price pressure for those looking to buy this spring. I don't know why it says this spring, because we're in summer right now, and this report came in June. And while annual home price growth has slowed considerably, home prices this spring have held up. The gains have mostly mirrored trends seen in pre-pandemic. This is encouraging given the fear that consumer sentiment has faltered. Cotalty's home price forecast for the coming month expects the solid home price trend to continue. So on one hand, all the predictions are going up, but what we're seeing is a little bit of slowdown, even in Orange County.
Yeah, definitely. We can feel that slowdown too.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, of course, right now it's graduation going on. Summer's coming up. So there's a normal, typical seasonal slowdown, but let's see what happens, so.
Yeah, the June gloom is kind of predictable each year. It seems like most families want to go take their trip, take a couple of weeks off before they dig into it. But it also, I can't help but feel with all of this going on that it's almost indicative of like that fall market once things start to slow down.
Right.
But that fall market could end up being more than just a seasonal market. It could end up being something a little bit longer than that.
Right. So going back to your open house, you said there's 7 people came in, 7 groups. What were some of the conversation you were having with them, with a typical buyer or a neighbor? What were they saying? What are you getting from them?
Yeah. So the neighbors, really not a whole lot different than what we've been hearing. Oh, prices are high, that kind of thing. To me, the people who are out shopping for homes right now are serious buyers. I haven't noticed much tire kicking going on. And I think part of that is simply because you can tire kick online. You can tire kick on Zillow and Redfin and all the other websites. You don't have to get up from your couch and go do that. You could do it from wherever you are. So the people who are out shopping are serious, which is what makes it, a little more frustrating, because it's seriously disappointing when you are hosting an open house and there are so many other options. It's just, we have to go back to the way that we did business pre-pandemic, like this just said.
Right. Okay. All right, let's talk about two things. I'm going to read out some things. What's happening in the buyer behavior right now, and then what's happening in the seller's mindset, seller strategy. So I'm going to read out some points and you can discuss on that. Buyer
Mhm.
behavior and sentiment. Some of the points I'm going to read out and then you can discuss is the rising fear among buyers with examples of all cash buyers backing out after financial consultations. Decrease in bidding activity, especially for homes over $500,000, and this is
Mhm.
nationwide. The trend of buyers delaying purchases or opting to rent due to higher mortgage rates and economic uncertainty. And lastly, the rental prices are expected to rise in 2025 due to increased demand from hesitant buyers. What's some of the points that grabs you, and what would you think as a buyer, or what would you tell somebody who's thinking about buying based on those?
Well, it's interesting when you hear that cash buyers are starting to be a little bit timid coming into this. I saw a statistic that cash buyers in Orange County, just our market alone, decreased 1.2% in April next to March. That still makes up for almost a third of all purchases are cash. But if I was a buyer that had to get a loan, I'd be wondering, why is the guy who isn't concerned about interest rates getting out of the market now? He should be unaffected by it.
Right.
Is he thinking that prices are going to drop and he wants to just wait until then? That's what
Mhm.
I'd be wondering.
Yep. Yeah. And here's another kicker. I read another report today. It was about home flippers. The last 5, 6, 7 years, home flippers have made tons and tons of money.
Hmm.
This report said that over the last year, a lot of Danny, hey, he bought 3 properties, he flipped them, made $50,000 each. So I'm going to say, oh shoot, if Danny can, I'm going to do it. So a lot of the newer agents got into the flipping market, and they
Hmm.
said that there's one team of agents, a group of flippers. They came in the market new last year, and it was a group of team, like 4 or 5 teams, and they lost $2 million total because the market,
Ooh.
because they thought, okay, they're going to buy a house for $400,000, fix it up, flip it, and by the time they do that, the 400,000 purchase would be worth 500, and the market goes up. But guess what happened? Market went down, and everything cost more. The product costs more, the labor costs more, the insurance costs more, right? So overall, this team of investors, and this is an average, they lost $2 million.
Ouch.
So here goes the flipping market. I have a friend who calls me all the time, find me a flipping market, find me a flipper for 800,000 in Orange County. I said, no, go to Riverside, go to Bakersfield, go to Hesperia. He doesn't want to go there. I haven't shown him any homes on purpose because guess what? I don't want him to buy something right now because he's not going to make it. At an
I literally just
800,000 price point, he's not going to make it.
at what price point?
800,000 in Orange
Oh,
County, single
800,000.
family residence. You can't find anything.
No, that's so tough. And
Yeah.
one of my best friends, he also just had this conversation with me last week. Said he really wants to flip. He's got a bug. He really wants to flip. His company is doing quite well right now, and he wants to go and pick up a flip. And I'm saying, I don't see it right now, man.
Unless you get
I
a
love you,
really,
brother,
really,
but
yeah.
please don't do that right now.
Unless it's a smoking deal, don't go for it.
Yeah,
Your margin has to be quite a bit, and unless you get a really good deal, 30% below market, days are gone where we're buying 15% under market because you bought 15% under market. You went in and pumped everything out in a month, and in the meantime, the market's going up. Those days are gone because everything's gone up. Your labor, your material, and then the appreciation is not going up. So there's no room. Don't expect the jump.
And even then, if you do find yourself a really good deal, if you're brand new to this and you want to get your first flip, I just don't think that right now is the right time to be figuring it out.
At least not in Southern California. Maybe,
yeah, at least not in Southern California.
right,
Yeah,
maybe
I
Florida.
agree
Go
with
to Florida. Buy 3 homes over there.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
There will be some opportunity. Real estate over the long haul, despite the tone of this conversation, over the long haul, real estate really is a rather conservative investment if you can weather any storm.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Exactly.
storms that happen.
Right.
So make sure your shelter is strong.
Right. So let's switch gears here. We talked about the buyers. If you were a seller, and when I say you, a typical seller,
Hmm.
and you're thinking about selling, let's say your 2-bedroom condo, you're thinking about selling, right? What are some of the things that a typical seller has to keep in mind knowing that the inventory is going up, the rates are up, insurance is up, what should be a typical seller's expectations as far as price, the time, what kind of buyer you're going to get, and what kind of challenges you might have? Let's
Yeah. So pricing right now is more important than ever. The where you price the home, if you go too high, not even just too high, if you are above the last closed comp, even in our market, where our market is stronger than many other markets, if you're above the last closed comp, you can anticipate that time you're going to sit on the market is longer than if you had priced it appropriately. I think that buyers right now are extremely picky. So if your home is also not in good condition or is not that smoking hot deal fixer that somebody who's super savvy and knows how to fix it up and resell it is, interested in, then again, it's going to sit. So to me, I think that pricing it is super important. The time you should expect right now in Orange County, you're somewhere between 30 and 60 days before you actually have to move out of your house.
Yeah.
And probably more than that even too. You might be looking at 90 days before you're, legally obligated to get out of your home by the time it closes.
Right.
It's not uncommon to see homes sitting for longer. Are there those anomalies where you just have the perfect home that's priced accurate, that's staged and looks beautiful? Absolutely. Those ones still exist, but there are far fewer. Most people are experiencing a slower market right now.
Right. How long is it taking in Orange County in general to sell a home compared to a year ago? And what about the nationwide? Has it gone up? Do you know, or how much?
Yeah, the days on market has gone up. I was just reading the Stephen Thomas report recently, and it went up year over year. It's up like 20 something days, almost double from where it was.
You're talking Southern California, Orange County area.
Yeah, Orange County specifically. Right. Yeah, Southern California, depends on the market, of course. But yeah, in Orange County, we're seeing an increase in days on market.
What are we at, 45, 50 days or what? What are we?
A little more. Yeah, we're around 50 days right now.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then again, it also depends on the price point, right? Because in Orange County, you can get an entry-level condo and you can get all the way up to a $50 million. That was the highest price sale in Orange County this year was $55 million. Wow. It was a shell, too. It was just framing.
No way. 55 million?
In Newport Coast, what was his name? Paul Daftarian. Yeah, they sold a shell of a home with a beautiful, like 270-degree view. It's just framing on the inside. Somebody who bought that has to spend I think you and I were talking about this actually, Mike. They're going to have to spend millions to rehab that. So
tens of millions. Tens of millions.
It's very interesting to just see that contrast between what's happening in, I would say, the average market versus what's happening in the very high-end luxury space.
Yeah, high-end is a whole new ball game,
different ball game.
Yeah. So I'm going to put up a slide here, and I want to talk about this because I mentioned it. So I want to make sure we talk about it. I'm going to share a screen, and what I want to touch is, this is. Can you see the screen? This is from Zillow, by the way. Zillow turns housing bear. Just look at its updated 2025 forecast. Zillow projects that U.S. home prices will fall 1.7% between March 2025 and March 2026. So it's a year over year, March to March. Last month, and this report came out in April. So last month, which was in March, Zillow economists still thought U.S. home prices would rise this year. But that's not what I really want to talk about. What I want to talk about is this over here, because I mentioned earlier, we'll talk about where the home prices are going up and where they may come down. So let's look at this. Can you see the screen, by the way?
Yes.
It shows that among the 300 largest U.S. metro areas housing markets, Zillow expects the strongest home price appreciation between March to March to occur in these 10 areas. I'm going to read them out. Atlantic City, Kingston, New York, Rochester, New York, Knoxville, Tennessee. I was just there 3 weeks ago, about a month ago. Torrington, Connecticut, Bangor, Maryland. I'm assuming that's Maryland. Emmy's Maryland. Syracuse, New York. Vineland, New Jersey. Concord, New Hampshire. Norwich, Connecticut. Wow. All in the East Coast looks like, or mid to East Coast. They expect a price increase. Let's talk about among the 300 largest U.S. metro housing markets.
Mike, before you move on, I just wanted to ask you, of all those places right there, aside from Tennessee, personally, I haven't heard of any buyer wanting to go to any of those other areas. Tennessee is the one that I hear commonly, but do you hear about anybody wanting to buy in those areas?
No, but and this is a total guess. You know
Mhm.
who are going over there? All the
No.
people from Washington, D.C. area, when all those things happen, they're moving out of there. And New York, they're going to
Mm.
closer cities. I'm assuming that.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And I could be wrong, but hey, if any of viewers, let us know why you think these 10 areas, metro areas, has a house increase and not a decrease. I'm totally not familiar with it. I know I went to Knoxville, so I'm familiar with Knoxville as a city.
Mhm.
Went to play a golf tournament there just a month ago, and the homes were beautiful there. $400,000 can get a nice price. I almost went to an open house there, but we were running late, so I didn't go in there. But nice homes over there. And of course, we played in the suburbs, not downtown or anything, So,
Mhm.
but yeah, we'll leave it. So let's look at the home prices. Among the largest decreases, Houma, Louisiana, a 10% drop. Let me see here. Home price appreciation between March. So this is actually price drop, not inventory, but the price. Houma, Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana. Holy crap. Alexandria, Louisiana, Beaumont, Texas, Odessa, Texas, Midland, Texas, Monroe, Louisiana. Okay, first of
Stay
all,
out of Louisiana.
I'm surprised I don't see anything Florida here. I'm really surprised, but what are your thoughts on these 10?
Yeah, stay out of Louisiana for sure. Well, what's interesting is that a lot of people, Texas, I would say, is a common one that you hear people wanting to go to, but you see things like this, and it makes you ask why. While it's cheaper there, it may be cheaper. Does it really make sense long term? Does it fit with your plan?
I have no idea why Louisiana has so many states,
Yeah, so many cities in Louisiana. It's no go. Nolens. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I kind of why. I just Googled something and here's an AI response quickly. I'm not supposed to do this, but I'll do it. Louisiana's housing market is experiencing mixed price trends, with some areas seeing drops while others maintain high prices due to factors like increased inventory, rising interest rate, and insurance cost, right? You know what? If I had to guess, one reason why Louisiana is doing that, Danny, if I had to guess, and this is a wild guess, affordability.
Mm.
People cannot afford the increase in home prices, the increase
Hmm.
in interest rate, the increase in insurance, because the income in Louisiana is lower than your medium, right?
Hmm.
So I think it could be affordability rather than. I don't think they've had any major hurricanes and things like that over there. They're typical there, but that could be the reason that the prices. If I had to guess, it could be that the typical buy in Louisiana has been outpriced. That's why there's such a drop. That's a total guess. For those of you watching live or recording, if you're in that Louisiana area or if you're an agent, let us know in here whether it's live or recorded why Louisiana has so many states or cities major drops. We have no idea, but I'm assuming it's the affordability. The people cannot afford to buy in Louisiana. I mean, total guess. Yeah,
But an interesting one at that.
interesting
Yeah,
one.
I don't know when the last hurricane was over there, but I do wonder if the insurance companies have mentioned anything about just ensuring these areas also being prospectively increased, right?
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on over there. So yeah, so let's leave that at that. Let me go back to the screen here. Let me go back here. Okay. So yeah, so we were talking about the sellers. I don't know if you touched on it or not. What would be the seller's concern? We talked about it. You said that going back to the sellers, you said the days on market is a concern that you have to know that it's going to take longer to sell. Is that what you were saying? Going
Yep,
back to
yep,
the topic.
absolutely. So, something that the average seller needs to consider is if they need to be in their next home at a certain time period, it's going to take longer to sell. So being a contingent buyer right now, while you do have more options and while buyers are getting a little bit more of their way, they can't completely insist themselves all the time. They can't impose everything that they want. They might be able to negotiate. You're going to have sellers that are more willing to negotiate. But if a seller is also a buyer, maybe they can lock up that purchase first, but getting their home in escrow is going to be crucial. And right now, finding the right buyer is important because a lot of escrows are falling apart. So sellers also need to be aware that it's important that once they get that one into escrow, doesn't mean it's a done deal yet. So while it's going to take some time, you also need to do your due diligence. If you have a condo that you're selling, who knows? I have this condo in Lake Forest I'm dealing with that we are just like on the edge of jumping away from because this association is just such a nightmare right now. It's very unusual. Appraisals, I was talking with my broker the other day. We've heard of a couple appraisals coming in low recently. So these are other reasons that if a seller, is anticipating a smooth escrow, it's important who you're dealing with, of course.
Right.
Make sure you find your good representation here, but be aware that things can go wrong. Personally, I just had an an appraisal come in $245,000 low. I know I was telling you that the other day, Mike. $245,000 is not a small amount. There's some markets where $245,000 will get you a beautiful home with a beautiful lot. That is just a wild number. So for a seller, be aware that it is not. If you bought in, between 2020 and 2022, please do not expect to have the exact same experience that you did during those time periods.
Yeah.
This is very different market that we're in right now.
Right.
It requires a different behavior. Different strategy.
Right. Well, thanks for your input. You mentioned that a lot of the escrows are falling out. And I know that's a nationwide trend. And I know here in Southern California, it could be up to 20-30% are dropping out. What are some of the reasons so that our guests can find out what are the typical reasons they're falling out? And what's the impact of that for that seller selling it again? Let's say you had your condo for sale. Now it fell out. Selling again. What's the impact of that? So if you can just let us know a little bit on that.
Meaning when it comes back on the market, what's the impact of coming back on?
Well, first of all, why are they falling out? Okay. And what's the impact for reselling? Because you got to sell. You have a relocation. You got to sell. So now what do you do?
Yeah, okay. So some of the reasons, like I just mentioned, are one, the association. People are finding out that there may be special assessments coming. This is a result of combination. Could be insurance, right? A quick anecdote on that. Condo community up here in Anaheim Hills, their master insurance policy went from $60,000 a year to $600,000 a year. It's a lot of money, and that requires an assessment increase that the association wasn't planning for. So if you're somebody who owns in that type of a community and you go to sell your home and now you're finding out that there is a homeowners association fee due increase, it's highly likely that if you had a buyer that discovered that once you're already in escrow, they're going to want to leave. They don't want to deal with that. They want
a big
an association that's well run. If it's not, there's also a lot of tiptoeing right now in an already expensive market, an expensive time to buy because interest rates are high. The very smallest incidences or items that can come up on an inspection report might be a good enough reason for somebody to say, you know what, this is just, the signs are here that it's not meant to be. I'm seeing a lot more emotion, a lot more people that are saying, you know what, I think we can wait. We can renew our lease. We can continue what we're doing. Or, we can hold out here for a little bit longer. Maybe we stay another year. Let's wait until next year and see if things clear up. There's just, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that uncertainty in the market right now is causing people to, second guess really whether or not it makes sense to make the move right now. They're convincing themselves, sometimes appropriately, that right now is not the right time, or that, what we have is perfectly adequate for now.
Right.
Now, to answer the second part of your question, what happens if you do fall out of escrow and now you need to go back on the market? one, you obviously have to disclose what the reason is that you fell out of escrow. So if it is one of those insurance issues, you need to make sure that you're getting into alignment appropriately with what the new value would reflect with that, let's say, due increase on an association.
Mhm.
You can't just put it back on the market and hope that everything's going to be okay.
Right.
That is if you have to sell. If you don't have to sell, you don't have to do anything. But for somebody who needs or wants to, really is motivated to make that move, take the advice of your agent. Oftentimes, there's some kind of concession that's going to be made, whether it's in price or terms. You may need to adjust and do it quickly. Don't wait. Back in pre-pandemic, we used to say, okay, in 14 days, if we don't see any kind of movement, maybe we consider a price modification.
Mhm.
Today, let's see what happens this weekend, the first weekend. And if we don't get the action we're looking for, we may want to think about pivoting if you need this to sell right away.
Right.
If you don't, then perhaps you can tiptoe through this. If you don't need to sell right now, then you obviously have a lot more leverage.
Or don't even put it in the market, right? Why even put it in the market? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have that question too. Is
Yeah.
this really a good time to test the market? Maybe not.
No. So unless you're really motivated, unless you price it at market, we're not saying give it away. Price, if homes are selling at $1 million or let's say $400,000 and you price it at $425,000, your house is not going to sell. You got to go in at the market value, assuming that it's move-in ready, it's staged right, it doesn't smell, the carpet's not stained. Because people today, buyers today, if they're paying a high price, they want the house moving condition. I want that right carpet, the right paint, yeah. If I want a discount, hey, I don't mind. Okay, your carpet sucks. Fine, I'll change it. I'm getting 50,000 low on the price. I'll pay 10,000 for a carpet and flooring. Fine, I'll do that. So, buyers are smart today. They want what they want. They know the comps. Used to be sellers knew the comparatives, but today with all these apps, realtor.com and Zillow and Open Door, they tell you what the next home sold for, how much it sold for. They have all the data. So buyers are very smart today. When they come in with a price, of course, if it's a reasonable price, reasonable offer, reasonable terms and condition, as a seller, take it. Don't say, hey, don't fight for $10,000. Of course, I'm talking on $1 million property, on a $400,000 property, it's different.
Oh, sure.
10,000 is nothing here, right? It's very less.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different market. You can't be fussy. Same thing with the buyers. Don't expect too much. I'm hearing, and I'm sure you heard that a lot of the buyers are now, before it used to be, okay, here's a house, closing 20 days, no appraisal, no repairs, no fixing, nothing. Now the buyers are coming with a laundry list of inspection repairs with the whole page. Fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. What are you hearing on that? Let me hear your opinion on.
Oh yeah. Our transaction coordinator was just saying they saw a 4-page repair request the other day. 4 pages is crazy. So buyers are certainly getting to call more of the shots right now.
That's right.
And sellers have to respond. Now, if you need to sell, now's not the time to be arguing. I don't think you need to give it away once again. But if you're getting comparable price, if you're in the same market, you may need to take into consideration, was the last comp that sold, was it actually not as nice as your home? Or is the buyer making a good point? And yeah, you do need new carpet. It does need to be painted, and your appliances are old, and there's a lot more going on here. You need to really pay attention. Also, what you said just a moment ago too, I think is so crucial. If the last home sold at 400,000 and you're listing at 425, and you're having to reduce your price, you're not losing money. If you sell at 400,000, you're looking great in this market. You're looking fantastic. Don't be nervous about adjusting to get in alignment with what the market is dictating, because paraphrasing what you said, these buyers are savvy right now. There's a lot of savvy buyers that are paying attention to what the prices are, and sellers, some of them are paying attention to what the prices were doing a few years ago and thinking that they can still do that today. And the buyers are saying no.
Yeah. And the buyers have done their homework. They've checked the schools, they've checked the hospitals, they checked the neighborhood, they've driven around, they've talked to other agents online or whatever. So if they make an offer on your house, They like your house.
Oh
Inventory has
yeah.
gone up. There's 5 on the street, right? They're writing an offer on your house. There's something about that house. They like it. So agree on a price if it's reasonable market price. If they come back with a long list of repairs, we're not saying do all the repairs, but be reasonable. Don't say, no, I'm not going to do anything. Do something. Otherwise, they're going to cancel your escrow and go next door. They already have a backup plan. Am I right
Oh yeah.
on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I almost am inclined to say that I think that as a seller, you should be thinking a buyer who comes here is going to be emotional, and I need to hold my resolve. I need to be as clear-minded as possible. If they give me an offer, they do want my home. They want to try and make a deal work, and I need to not be insulted by what they say, and instead take the advice of my professional that I've hired and see if we can come to an agreement that works for us.
Right,
if it doesn't, so be it. But don't just dismiss them. I heard that story the other day of an agent who had an offer. A seller had an offer, told their agent, tell that person to take a hike. And guess what? They sat there until they expired. And that person did need to sell. They want to move out of state.
Okay.
It's too expensive to stay here. So that to me was crazy. You have a buyer here. I oftentimes reference the closed mouths don't get fed, right? You can't get what you don't ask for. So as a buyer, no one else is at the table. Sure, I'm going to ask for a discount. I really want your home, but I want it at a discount. Will you give it to me? No? Okay, well, what would you give it to me for? That's a conversation worth having. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you hear this, my message is negotiate with them.
Right. And here's the point. The first question the seller should ask is, why are they asking for the discount? You know why? Because all the homes are selling at 400 and you want 425. And when the buyer offers you 400, he's not unreasonable. You're unreasonable at 425. So the discount is of your quote, forgive me if I say this, of your greed. Right?
Ooh, greed was in my head too.
Okay, I said it. Well, put me a bad comment, whatever. But it is what it is. Facts are facts. We are here to give you facts. We are here to give you what's happening in the market. So if I have to use that word to make a point, I'm sorry, but it's a fact.
Honesty is so important right now. It's always important, but in this market right now, don't beat around the bush. It's got to be straight up, right?
Price it right, fluff it up, do your staging, declutter, stage, take nice pictures, hire the right agent. Oops, did I say that? How? Oh, let's talk about that. Oh. How important is a good agent in this market? Not in 2022, in 2021, 2022, you could have been an idiot and sold a house.
Oh yeah.
What does it take to that'll be our last talking point. What are some of the things that agent needs to be in this market if I'm a seller or a buyer? Let's talk about it and then we'll call it a day from there. Very important point, I think.
Yeah, completely agree.
In this market,
that pandemic time frame, my old broker used to call them orangutan sales because an orangutan could sell the home.
Exactly.
For how much was the question, but anybody could do it.
Anybody can do it.
What do they need? One, they need to be paying attention to the market. You need to know if you're from Orange County and you're taking a buyer to Inland Empire to shop for a home, you need to pay attention to what's happening in that space right there because it isn't necessarily the same. The conditions could be totally different. So how you advise your client if they're buying to purchase a home may be different. How you're advising your sellers if you're working with a seller to sell their home, it may not be, yep, totally, throw it on the market. This thing's going to sell quickly. You have a 2020 home in Hesperia. It's going to take, it'll be sold this weekend. That isn't necessarily true.
No.
So you need somebody who is giving you clear advice, who is telling you, you know what, right now is a good time to be patient. Still, pack your things. You want to move? You're going to move. And I'm going to make sure that you get a good price for your home. But don't expect it to happen today. So you need honesty in an agent. You need integrity. You need somebody who's going to fight for your bottom line as well.
Somebody with experience.
Now's not the time to nickel and dime them either.
No, yeah. Somebody with a lot of skill, a lot of experience because they've seen what has happened. And what happened in 2022, 23 is not happening. It's changing. You need an agent that moves with the trends and knows what's going on, staying ahead. Correct?
You know what I love about this industry, Mike, is that our income that we make is really performance based. So that's why paying more for a good agent is good for you too. the reason it's good for you is because you're incentivizing them to get you a higher price. The more money they make for you, the more money they make themselves too. It's really kind of interesting how that works, but really, you let them fight for your bottom line because they're fighting for theirs too.
Yeah. So let me give you a statistic. Yeah, Danny, let's talk about one statistic. Why we're talking about your agent is so important, whether you're a buyer or a seller, why hiring an agent is so important. In 2024, and I'm sure you heard this stat, isn't it true that about 70% of all the realtors did not sell one single home?
Oh, yeah.
See?
Oh, yeah.
So 7 out of 10 didn't sell any home. So make sure you pick one of those 3. It's so critical to know that.
You know,
so
one
don't
time
let your agent be the guy selling your house the first transaction, because they'll mess it up, especially in California. California is a tough state to sell a house as far as paperwork goes, disclosures goes, all kinds of things. Other states also. So if you're a buyer or a seller, you don't want your agent to be doing the first transaction because you could get into trouble. So on that note, whether you're in Montana, Florida, on that note, if you're looking for an agent, experienced, highly skilled, one of those 30%, and within the 30%, the top 3% of the agents nationwide, make a comment. I'll refer you to a top agent in your local neighborhood, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of them. Talk to them and then decide somebody who'll find you the best house or somebody who'll sell you the house at a top price. So hit us up. We are here to help you. Any last comments, Danny, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I think that is probably the best way to end it, is that right now it is so important who you hire to either sell your home or to represent you on your purchase. Both of those, more than ever, going to, thinking that you can go to the listing agent to get the result that you want if you're buying is just not what to do. Going to the discount broker to sell your home is going to end up costing you money that you don't want to spend. I know that you don't want to spend it because that's why you're going to the discount broker. You think you're getting a discount. It's going to end up costing you.
Yep. Selling a home, buying a house is a monster. We're entering into a period. This monster is getting even worse. So you need a good agent. Hit us up. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me, Mike. This was fun.
Bye-bye. Thanks again for everybody.
Bye-bye.